Hi everyone, it's Kute here. You know, we all have a certain reality, a certain way that we view reality, and we often think that that way of viewing reality is reality itself. I like to say that how you view reality actually determines your reality, and in that way you create the reality you get to experience moment by moment by the way you view reality. But we're not often aware as to what actually determines why and how we perceive reality, and why and how we perceive reality the way we see it is often determined by our conditioning, by our programming. How you see reality determines your reality. And there are often things that might occur in our lives that happen, that might be rather challenging, that might be rather painful, that might be rather intense, that when they happen, in the moment that they happen, you might not quite understand why that thing is happening. Do you know what I'm saying? Perhaps you're not quite sure, like, wow, why did I attract that guy into my life, or that relationship into my life that was so painful? Why did I go through that intense betrayal with that person? Why did that person embezzle money from me? Why did I go through that experience? Why was my boss that way? Sometimes we go through certain situations and experiences that while you're in them make no sense, or you can't quite understand logically or even emotionally why it's going on in the moment. And in those moments, our mind gets so busy trying to figure out, why is this happening? What's going on? Sometimes we go into a place of self-judgment. What's wrong with me? You know, what did I do wrong? God doesn't love me. The universe doesn't like me. And our mind starts spinning into this negative cycle, which ultimately doesn't serve the situation. I found that so often we're so close to a situation, and sometimes the perspective with which we're viewing a situation is so close that we end up missing the entire picture. We end up missing the whole picture. We often only end up seeing with our limited reality a small piece of the true reality of what the situation is, of what's really going on. And so often it's only after you actually take a step back, maybe months, days, months, weeks, years later, when you look at the situation from a whole different viewpoint, from a whole different lens, from a whole different perspective, that you can actually go, wow, you know, now I understand why I attracted that person into my life. Now I understand why I actually had to go through that relationship. Now I understand why I actually had to move across country and go through that intense experience. I understand it now. But so often we only see that when we actually take a step back for a moment. It reminds me a few years back when I first went to the Getty Center in Bel Air, Los Angeles, and I got to see a Monet painting. Monet is a very famous painter, in case you don't know him, and I didn't know him at the time, so don't feel bad. And I was fascinated by this Monet, and I went up so close to look at the Monet painting, and I was like looking at this bluish, whitish Monet painting so close, and it just looked like someone had flicked these crazy paints on the Monet, and I couldn't make out what's the big deal? Like, why are people making such a big deal about this great painter Monet? And literally, I started to take a step back for a moment, and took another step back, and took another step back, and took another step back, and I kept going back. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, in full view, as I shifted my perspective and opened my horizons to see the entire picture, what I saw was the most beautiful. It's a painting called Church at Dawn. But when I was looking so closely at the picture, trying to figure out with my mind, what does this mean? What is this painting? I didn't see the beauty of the whole tapestry of the situation. We often only see a small piece of what's going on, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a transition, whether you're fired from your job. In that moment, we often only see a small piece of the reason. When something happens, I like to say, don't try to figure out with your mind why this is happening and make up meanings that don't empower you. Take a step back, breathe, and really do your best to trust that life has an intelligence, life has a wisdom, and you may not always get what you think you want in the moment, but ultimately the intelligence of life, in synchronicity and harmonious coordination with your soul's aligned destiny, is bringing about the highest and utmost fulfillment of exactly what you need at that exact moment of your life. I'm asking that in those moments, and I'm encouraging that in those moments, you really take a step back and trust the perfection of the universe, and trust that with a little time, with a little space, with a little grace, with perhaps a shift in perspective, the real lesson of the situation, the real meaning of the situation will reveal itself. The other shift in perspective in those moments is a great shift in perspective, is one from, why is this happening to me? My God, why is this happening to me? To, what can I learn from the situation? What's the situation here to teach me? Every situation that you go through, every person, every situation, every experience ultimately is here to assist you to evolve. Every situation is ultimately here to help you realize and recognize more and more of your true self. So if you're willing to shift your perspective and trust that every single situation you're going through is here to assist you in growing and evolving, then your perspective can become one of learning and one of evolution versus one of victimhood or one of negativity. Have it be one of learning and evolution. Then you can learn the lessons you need so you can go to that next level of your life. Reminds me of a story about a guy who was running late to the airport to go to New York for a very, very important business meeting. And he was running late. He was like half an hour late, and he jumps into the cab, and he jumps out of the cab, and he gets his stuff, and he runs into the terminal to check in, and they say, sorry. You know, sometimes, have you ever had the experience where the check-in people just very politely say, sorry, we can't do that right now. So they basically told this man, sorry, time's up, check-in's done, you can't get on the plane, you've missed your flight. Tough luck, very kindly. And he was furious because he had to get to this meeting, and he was fighting the check-in person and just causing a fuss, and spoke to the manager, and nothing could be done. You know, time was up, real simple. Finally he said, okay. They put him on the next flight. He's in the lounge area waiting for his next flight for a few hours. Lo and behold, he looks at the TV screen and CNN's on, and he realizes and he sees a plane crashing into the Twin Towers. And he's completely shocked. But then he's even more shocked when he realizes that that was the plane that he would have been on at that moment of his life. So in that moment, do you think his perspective shifted? In that moment, do you think he was actually maybe felt blessed and the grace of spirit in the universe that he perhaps wasn't on that plane? A shift in perspective at any moment. So sometimes you may not know why you're going through a situation. You may not know why something's happening. But if you're willing to trust the process of life, life in its infinite intelligence will reveal to you exactly what you need at the exact perfect moment, and will reveal to you why and what is going on when you need it. So what is a situation in your life that you're currently viewing a certain way, perhaps only seeing a small piece of the pie, perhaps looking at something from a perspective that is actually disempowering you? What is something you might be seeing in a way that's disempowering that you could maybe take a step back and begin to see, and begin to shift your perspective and begin to see the entire picture? That perspective shift will begin to change your reality, and in that way you can create a new reality in that moment. Trust life and keep moving forward with faith. Love you lots.